Coming up in the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, we do a special teams preview. Not much of a preview, but we do a little bit of one. We talk a little bit about the Caleb Williams kind of kerfuffle that went on. And then we have Tom Vanderford coming in to give his perspective on Ole Miss Sports. So this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Stick around.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, thanks for making the Locked On Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Do us a favor, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and of course, upvote the video as well. We would really appreciate it. Special teams wise, in Ole Miss, you look at it's kind of a blank slate at this point. You have Kel Nation coming back. You have a suspension for Caden Costa that is going to go till the week before the Egg Bowl. Now, because of the redshirt rules, he can play this season. He's not going to have to sit out the whole season. He can, if it comes down to it, he could play those games, and not even be able to use up his eligibility because of that. Now, I will say this: I don't know is not an excuse for an appeal if you want to challenge it. I've heard rumors that he pissed hot for Adderall and things like that, and that he knew that it happened. Well, if he knew that it happened, then he's not expecting to win the appeal, because my point is, what is the case for the appeal? And I didn't know that was a drug that I shouldn't take is never going to be a good excuse. So he will handle that. I'm sure he's a good kid. He'll bounce back from it. But the rumor is, kicking wise right now, the name that's gaining steam, I think, is Parker Lewis from SC. Now, if you notice, all the coaches coming from SC over to the Ole Miss staff, the latest being Seth Daggy, that was the tight ends coach at SC, is going to be an offensive analyst at Ole Miss. So all these comfortable names, it's becoming a rather nice landing spot, potentially. And it is something that everybody can just be happy about what's going on, and a place for them to land. Now, if Parker Lewis comes in and just absolutely kills it with Caden Costa, what's going to happen is he's going to end up transferring out. Because we are in the age, make no mistake, we are in the age to where if there's stiff competition, sure, you might compete for a little bit, might compete for the spring, but if it didn't reach its conclusion by the spring, you're going to be gone. It just is what it is. And the other guy is going to win. And I think that might happen, honestly, this spring, kicking wise. Although, who knows? This could be Kel Nation's opportunity to come out there and kick the ball really well. I've told you over and over again, if Lane Kiffin goes out and gets a transfer portal kicker, he thinks this team can be special. That's the translation there that everybody's looking for. If he thinks that this team is going to be special, he will go get a kicker, because he is not going to risk losing those points. Let's say it's a 4th and 13 from the 22-yard line. You want to be able to count on at least 3. You don't want to go for it there. The analytics do not say to do that. I know we use analytics as a crutch, and we do all of that stuff going on, and we'll talk about that during the season. But 4th and 12, take the 3. And allow this offense to grow into. But because by the end of the season, this offense could be really, really good. But you need the special teams to do that. Now, Frazier Mason from Australia, they signed an Aussie to a scholarship to be a punter to replace Mac Brown. Aussie rule punters are athletic. They're used to kicking on the run. I don't know if they're going to do, I don't know what's the word, rugby style or traditional style kicking. I think they're going to do a combination of both, because why go out and get an Australian rules punter if you're not going to use what he can do? He's also a big guy. So if it's a fake, there's a chance he's probably going to run it once or twice before he is done. So I'm interested to see exactly what that looks like. And because of that, Archie is making a ton of noise right now. Archie, stop it. Come on, bud. All right. There. Took care of that. And he's barking in the other room, and he's going to do that because somebody's walking with a dog, and that's just what he does. So that's where the special teams sits. The return game, Jerry and Ely was the kickoff return guy. I do expect something similar. I expect Quinshon Judkins to get a shot back there returning kickoffs. As far as a punt returner, I think Jonathan Mingo is going to get the first go back there in punt return. That's been the goal back way when Elijah Moore sat out. The first one that went back and caught punts was Jonathan Mingo. This is a big year for Jonathan Mingo, but that's what I think the special teams are going to look like for Ole Miss. If they sign a kicker, the kickoffs are, potentially could be a good thing and could be a weapon. If they don't sign one, I don't look for it to be one. We struggled in the kickoff game last year. Our coverage was all right, but the kicks weren't exactly what we wanted them to be. So football might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the fired next coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the #1 sports spot for all of your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just about basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and USC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, so do us a favor and hit subscribe. Hit the bell to be notified of videos being posted, and of course, upvote the video. We'd appreciate it very much, so thank you very much for that. Now, in the first segment, we talked about the special teams. The special teams is a little bit of a black hole for this team. It just is. You don't know exactly where it could go. You have an idea of what might happen, and you can see it in your head fairly clearly. But until it actually does happen, you're a little bit concerned about it. And especially with RPMs coming in for defensive linemen for Ole Miss, and Ole Miss having 3 or 4 initials left over. It'll be interesting to see exactly what they do and how that looks. So one thing that was kind of interesting today is Caleb Williams' dad talked about a little bit of in-depth in his recruiting process. For those that don't know, Caleb Williams ended up transferring to USC. We all said he was going to go to USC. He was pretty much going to USC as soon as he announced that he was going to transfer. But his dad, as a part of the Keep USC Out of Tampering charges, said this, and that is, we liked Lane Kiffin, but Lane Kiffin couldn't overcome that he didn't want to come to Mississippi and play football. Now, what does this mean? Is it a big deal? I don't think so. Personal preference is always going to handle a kid in the name of recruiting. I know there's some people out there that thinks all kids should just suck it up and do whatever they need to do to get wherever they need to get, but that's not how sports works. That's not how recruiting works. You're going to lose kids. There's just some kids that are never going to come to Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin made a pitch, talked about what was going on, couldn't overcome living in Mississippi. And for some, living in Mississippi is a problem. For instance, Oxford, Mississippi is a plenty nice town. I lived there for 3 or 4 years. Plenty nice town. But it's not LA as far as things to do, nightlife to see. It'll never be LA. The number of businesses that are out and about, I mean, it just will not be Los Angeles. It just can't. It can't compete with that. You need to find the person that is looking for the Oxford, for the small town, and not the LA. It's a personal preference thing. Now, I get why people say with Mississippi's checkered past, why they're upset at what Caleb Williams' dad said. And honestly, that still doesn't really necessarily bother me. Because a kid has a right to have his own opinions on whatever. And if it's something like that, you need to work to make that better. If that is your reputation, that is what you are known for, you need to work to turn that around. And Mississippi is. Maybe not as quickly as we all expect them to, but they are. They are. And eventually, it'll get to the point where kids aren't avoiding Mississippi because of Mississippi's past. And a lot of that was the changing of the flag. That symbolism is a huge thing. Now, there are some people, there are literally some people, that want Mississippi not to change because they like it the way it is. And take that for whatever you want to. It literally can mean anything. But they are comfortable with the way it is. And they do not want to change that because it will upset the apple cart for what they are. Now, I see why Mississippians might say that. But if you do that, you cannot be upset about a kid not coming here because of Mississippi. If a kid's father said that, if you aren't upset about change, and you're completely okay with the way it is now, you cannot be upset about a kid not deciding to come here. Period. Because those two things are directly related. You want an inclusive environment to where you can recruit everybody, you need to work towards that. If you want a certain type of player, be what you are. And it's fine either way. I do not live in Mississippi. It is what it is. But if you're going to get mad about an article and to say things like, to hell with him, why? Why? He's not bad-mouthing Mississippi. He's just saying that he doesn't want to go to Mississippi. He doesn't want to play football in Mississippi, which is his choice, his prerogative. If that upsets you, you kind of need to change what you're doing. If you're not upset about any of that happen, if you're not upset about the way Mississippi is, or somebody not coming to Ole Miss about it, if that doesn't make you angry, fine. Stay exactly as you are. Because those two things are related. And people need to keep that in mind. So this is the time of year I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolutions to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you are missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors like yummy cinnamon, churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. So good. These are going to be your new favorite. And best of all Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, Puffs included 100% real chocolate. So, mint brownie, coconut almond, and for new this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They are delicious and there are new flavors coming out all the time. And if they think a flavor might be good, they'll make it and it will be delicious and it will be good for you. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it delicious first, then they figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how they do it, but they pull it off every single time. So here's your offer. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Do us a favor, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and of course, upvote the video. We're here with Tom Vanderford for his weekly Perspectives feature where we talk about all things Ole Miss sports. Tom, this is a little sneak preview, but on Monday's show, Bill Flowers is going to be on it. And I did about 20 minutes of interviewing with Bill Flowers, and he broke down the top fastest receivers of that 2003 team, which stadium was the loudest, how loud the Vaught Hemingway Stadium was after Travis Johnson intercepted that ball against LSU. All of that stuff was covered. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I would imagine that that's one of the loudest that stadium's ever been. After Travis intercepted that ball, just wish Eli wouldn't have tripped.
Yeah,
there at the end. But I was at the Alabama game in 2014, and that's the loudest I've ever heard it. Yeah, when Senquez caught that, but when it finally, they finally relented and said it was official. Yeah, everybody went nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that pretty well. That was pretty nuts. But I think that 2003, I honestly think it was maybe louder because it was loud to begin with. Because if you remember correctly, LSU was backed up on the goal line. So they were already loud. And then they throw that little ball over the middle. Travis Johnson just picks it up and just moseys into the end zone. And that place just goes nuts.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was probably the loudest it's ever been.
That's one of my favorite. Both of those are two of my favorite moments ever as an Ole Miss fan. The other one, I was at the Immaculate Deflection. I was actually in the stadium for there. I know 200,000 people claim they were there, but I was actually in there, sitting on my dad's shoulder. I was like 6 or 7 years old at that point.
Oh goodness, yeah. I've seen plenty of videos, but I'm pretty sure I was in the Navy at the time when that happened. But yeah.
It was an interesting game. Whenever the ball goes up, it's going dead center. Artie Cosby, he was actually a legit good kicker. And it was only like a 27-yard field goal. I mean, the game was essentially over. And the ball going up, the state fans all start celebrating and stand up because they just beat Ole Miss. And we all know how much that means to state fans. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, the other side, the cheering level goes up on there, and the state people sitting down, and the ball kind of the wind blows it back. And it was bizarre. It'll be like something that I have not seen before or since. But that is probably my one of my favorite Billy Brewer games, the '86 LSU game. I'm a huge fan of. '88 Bama, of course. Bear Bryant Museum.
Yeah. I had to. I'm from Corinth, so I grew up with John Darnell. So
okay.
88 meant a lot to me too. Of course, I was in the military, so I had to get what I could get when I could get it. But
believe me, I know that.
Yeah. So, but that was especially nice for me, just growing up with a good guy and seeing him succeed.
Yeah. 2003, I was in Italy, so I had to follow 2003 on AFN in Italy. Because of course this is back when they had broadcast.com, so I could pick up a radio broadcast from time to time.
Right.
But the Auburn game, the LSU game, they're 2:30 games here, but they were 9:30 starts there.
Oh yeah.
So by the time it was over, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was done, and I couldn't go to sleep till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. But the fun thing is the Auburn game. It was back and forth, as most people know. And Eli let him down, and he threw the touchdown, and Brandon Jacobs scored to give Ole Miss the lead, and Auburn got the ball back and started driving the ball down the field. Well, she learned a lesson that's all wives had to learn. And she just looked at me and said, no matter who wins this game, it has been a good game. And I was like, nope, do not say that to me ever again. And by the way, Bill Flowers think that Auburn is the loudest stadium in the SEC, by the way.
I think they're pretty loud. Their fan base is they're pretty rabid, especially inside of Jordan-Hare. Yeah.
If there's a situation where LSU has to legit fear Ole Miss, like Ole Miss is going to go down to Tiger Stadium, and LSU's not going to be expecting to win that game this year.
Right.
So their fan base is going to be more rabid than they normally are. And that's when this game actually turns back into a rivalry, because LSU fans actually do care about losing to Ole Miss, and they're just going to be dreading it this whole time. And it's going to be a little bit of a cauldron, and I think it's the 7th or 8th game of the season. That could be a little bit of a cauldron down there.
Oh gosh, yeah. If it's all about the time of day with those guys. If it's an 11 a.m. Central kickoff, it's totally different than if it's 7 at night, 6, 7 at night. They're good and liquored up by then, and yeah, it's not fun. I've been to Baton Rouge once, and I'll never go again. But
let's see. I went in 2004 and saw Robert Lane play quarterback and just run for 100 yards, almost win that game.
Yeah.
I was there in 95 when not 95, 96 when Paul Head was the quarterback, the lefty. Ole Miss came out in blue. The one time they wore blue under Tuberville was that game. And I went in 2006 in a game that either went to overtime or Jamarcus Russell won at the very end. So it's been very competitive games every single time, other than that Paul Head one, because that was pretty much a disaster. But I got to see Kevin Falk and Eddie Kennison and Herb Tyler and those guys, because they were legit good. Wasn't a good time for LSU football, but those were some legit guys.
Oh, yeah.
But that's my 3 experiences in Tiger Stadium.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the happiest days in my life when Nick Saban left LSU because we couldn't beat the guy, and
Left on an Iowa Hail Mary.
Yeah. So, but yeah, hey, I think you said we were going to talk some about the defensive line. How about that new co-defensive coordinator, though?
Yes, I got a video up on the site that I snicker at every time I read it. It says, "Who is Mo Crumb?" Because it's like, "Who's Harry Crumb?"
Oh yeah,
joke.
Oh yeah. I'd never heard of him. I'll be honest with you until he was hired, and then you go do your research. If you're a big fan, and I think it's a home run hire. I really do. As a matter of fact, I think he's young, so he's gonna. I think one of the reasons Chris Kiffin left was, like you said, recruiting's a young man's game, and at his point in life, he's got soccer practices to go to and all this other stuff with kids that that he didn't have the last time he was with us, and I think he's just like, dude, I'm going to miss too much family time. Yeah, so go back to the league, and it's a regular job.
He's been out for 5 years, and recruiting has completely changed in 5 years. Now you want your 10 coaches, your 10 on-field coaches. Take away the 2 coordinators. The 2 coordinators are going to be wonky X's and O's guys. But the other 8 coaches, they're recruiters. You want 90% of their job is recruiting. The other 10% is relaying to the kids what the analyst has put in and done. Right. Yeah, you're just relaying information because you have X's and O's guys that are working at the same time that they're recruiting. You just need those recruiters to relay it to the kids. So you need a good communicator, and if they're a good recruiter, they're probably a good communicator. But I genuinely like Mo Crumb. I mean, he dealt with massive play volume at Western Kentucky with Bailey Zappi and that crew on offense, and turned into a very successful unit on defense. And was able to handle that play volume like really, really well. And because of that, I think he's going to meld in well with what we do. Now,
I think so.
I'm a proponent of the 3 safety system. You've heard that over and over again.
Oh yeah.
I'm a major proponent of that. But he brings in some stuff that will allow us to do a little bit of 4-down stuff too as well. And we have 3 techniques and that we can do that 4-down stuff. So you might see a 4-2-5 from time to time, a 4-1-6. It might look a little bit different.
Exactly.
And our versatility is our strength defensively. Absolutely.
I think so. We're so much. We have so much more athleticism on the defensive line next year than we had this year. You had the kid from Georgia Tech. You had the kid from Auburn, and you're just you're looking at a couple of monsters, man. They're huge. They're fast.
And then you got Xavier Harris, who is going to report to our Ole Miss at somewhere around 350 pounds at 6'8".
Yeah. By far the best defensive lineman in Mississippi this last year.
Yeah, he is absolutely. It's like get in front of the center and take up blockers.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be a project.
No. Now Katie Hill is probably going to start.
He's got the experience.
And by the end of the year, he was actually pretty damn good.
He was good, really good.
But now you have somebody that can spell him. And you also have guys like Isaiah Iton. You have Jamon Gordon back. Even to go with Pegues, to go with Jared Ivey. You got Damon Clowney back for the speed rushing. Yeah, I mean, there's so much versatility in what you can do with different fronts. I mean, this is absolutely impressive. And you have players like Otis Reese and these box safeties that's going to allow you to do all these different things because they're 220-pound guys that can run. All of them.
Yeah, and they hit, too.
Yeah.
They come real fast, and they hit you hard, so...
One of the funniest things I heard was like one of the NFL draft guys said Otis Reese came back in school in order to become more physical. And I'm like, that's all he is physical. He needs to come back and be more of a technician. That's a physical dude.
I don't even think some of those guys look at film. I mean, prior to this season, I was reading and somebody was busting on Matt Corral because his arm strength.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, you got to be kidding me.
It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, come on.
Come on, man. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, where do you think Corral's going to end up?
I hope I'm wrong because I just can't. I don't think I can bring myself to rooting for the Redskins, but I think he's going to. Well, they're not the Redskins anymore. They're the Commanders. I'm sorry. I'm old school, man.
Hey, that's a military name. I'm all about a military name. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that he probably ends up there. I would like for him to slip to the Saints, but that's just me. That's just me. That's where I'd like him to be.
What I think is going to happen is they're going to fall so much in love with Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett that those are going to be the first two quarterbacks off the board, and then he will fall to the Saints.
I hope so.
Because I could see somebody like Malik Willis going to Pittsburgh. I could absolutely see that. I could see Kenny Pickett. He just seems like a Washington Commanders type quarterback.
Yeah, that'd be fine with me.
Yeah,
I don't like him, and I don't like them.
The problem will be is which of these highly rated teams are going to be willing to throw their whole draft away for a quarterback in the first 10 picks.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be one team, and that could throw off everything. All of a sudden, you're looking at Corral going to the Commanders, and Kenny Pickett's going to the Steelers, and all of a sudden Malik Willis is a number 2 overall pick to the Detroit Lions. Something like that, and that wouldn't surprise me at all, especially once Willis goes up to the combine and just puts up obscene numbers, because he's going to put up obscene numbers.
Oh yeah, he's got all the tools.
Mm-hmm.
He has all the tools.
What they need to do with Malik Willis, and this isn't hard, but he needs to be on the Steve McNair plan. And that means he needs to go to some place like Detroit, and they tell him immediately, he's like, you're not going to play for 2 years. You're going to watch, you're going to absorb, you're going to practice. This is Jared Goff's team. You absorb everything with him, and then all of a sudden in year 3, we're going to turn this over to you if you're ready.
Yep.
And if you do that, you have a chance with him. But
I think so.
But I think if they try to rush him in, and I think that's the way the NFL is right now, he is not developed and polished enough to do it. I mean, at this point, he's a worse Trey Lance.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I just he's got the tools, but he was in a league and in a system where, I mean, look what our defense did to him. I mean, they shut him down for the most part, and he's got a lot to learn about. I think about coverages and other things like that, and a couple of years would benefit him greatly.
Yeah, the reality is at Liberty, he did not see SEC level defenses. That's one advantage that SEC quarterbacks like Matt Corral will have. Yeah. Is that he's seen those defenses. They're a little bit more complex. They're not quite NFL. You don't have the time to do all that stuff. But they are a little bit more complex than you could see at Louisiana Monroe.
Exactly, and there's more speed.
Yeah.
There's more comparable speed. So the
smaller windows, yeah.
Right. The game slowed down a little bit, possibly, for those guys. But, I'd love to see Matt in New Orleans. That would, we seem to have always, over the years, we've had good legacy Rebels end up down there. And, we had Archie and Deuce and Cade for a bit even. Yeah. So, it'd be nice to have another Rebel down in New Orleans.
Now, what would be a horrible irony? This would be a horrible irony, is if Matt Corral went to Pittsburgh and they had offensive line problems when the Saints are finally good. Because all we heard with Archie is if Archie had gone to the Pittsburgh Steelers, he'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And everybody talked about that. And if Matt Corral would have went to the Saints, this could be that argument. This could be setting up. If he'd have went to the Saints, he would have been something else. Yeah. I think this is on the table.
Oh, yeah.
So this weekend, or tonight actually, Ole Miss and Charleston Southern. What are you looking for in this opening weekend of baseball? What are you gonna hit the SEC plus? How you do it?
Yeah, well, we've got really good bats. I think we've got the best group of bats we've had in a while. I think we've got some really good. I don't think I know. We've got some really good defensive players. We've got Dunhurst and Gonzalez and I don't Peyton Chatanier or however you say it.
Chatanier.
He's a good guy too. So I'm looking at the pitching. This is just my opinion, but what I've noticed over the last few years is it seems that as the year goes on, our pitchers get a little bit more worn out towards the end of the season, and I'm just hoping that we have a robust pitching staff. We got the three starters, and we've got some middle relief and some closers, and just enough pitching that we don't wear somebody out by the end of the year.
I think the key to this season will be Derek Diamond getting over his little mental block. He has a problem to be a little bit too hard on himself, and it snowballs on him. If he can just pitch the next pitch and do what he does, and he has fantastic stuff, he has a chance to be a very good Friday guy. He's not going to be Doug, but he has a chance to be a very good Friday guy. But if he kind of goes down that rabbit hole of putting too much pressure on himself, it could be tough sledding for him, especially on Friday night.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking at I enjoy baseball season, and I hope we have a good season. Like I've told you before, I work with a lot of state folks, and they seem to think we're going to have a good season.
Yeah, I think we can actually basically out-hit teams to 16 and 14, 17 and 13. If we have a good pitching staff, 18 and 12, 19 and 11 is a possibility.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we were talking last year. We had this great offense in football, but we weren't sure about the defense. Mm-hmm. So if we could just get same thing, if we just get some decent pitching, we could go a long way. I forget what publication it was, but we were picked to win the SEC in baseball this year by one service anyway.
Yeah.
So it's you never know.
And if you don't have the starters you want, or whatever's going on, or somebody gets hot, if you have that closer, if you have that Landon Sims that Mississippi State had, all of a sudden they can help that staff and take a little pressure off of you. It'll be interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Next week, we will have Bill Flowers on the show as we get the perspective of a former player. He talks about transfers and the 2003 season and all of that we debut for you on this Locked On Ole Miss podcast. So now make the second listen, Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all of your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Tom, thank you as always. I look forward to next week. We'll do it again. But this is a lot of fun, man.
I really enjoy it, man. Thanks a lot for having me.
No problem. And enjoy the baseball this weekend.
Yes, sir. You know it.
Mm-hmm.
Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.